Interpreter is Yola Nzale. We begin tonight with a story about a year after giving the nod to the controversial mission in Haiti during a state visit to Washington. President William Ruto now says the multinational security support mission remains replete with underfunding and logistical challenges. During his address to the UN General Assembly, the president termed the current structure of the UN Security Council exclusionary, underscoring the need for urgent reforms to address what he labeled an unfair post-1945 order. From the UN headquarters, Ayub Abdikadir now joins us. Ayub, maybe you can help us into this conversation that the president was giving right there.
Well, Sam, we are live from the UN headquarters here in New York, the United States of America, and the president in the nearly half an hour speech talked about the need for the restructuring of the United Nations, the need for more funding given the cuts that the UN has experienced and how it's holding up under the enormous financial constraint. Also talking about the mission in Haiti, and the president by extension also said there's need for more representation at the United Nations Security Council, one of the topmost organ in terms of decision making. And here is what the president said this morning here at the United Nations.
Africa also marks 20 years since the Ezulwini Consensus and the City Declaration.
The president's fourth address to the United Nations General Assembly came a day after US President Donald Trump made his, discrediting the United Nations and bringing New York to standstill. Taking to the podium, Dr. Ruto billed the UN fit for purpose, outlining Kenya's heavy load in the region and in Haiti, calling for the world's attention to the Caribbean country and the cash crunch facing the mission in Port-au-Prince.
The mission has operated in a volatile environment under enormous constraints. It has been underfunded, under-equipped, and operated below 40% of its authorized personnel strength. Our police officers have valiantly shouldered responsibilities without the full logistical support that would accompany any mission sanctioned by the United Nations. Despite these challenges, and against all odds, the MSS has delivered results many thought were impossible.
The president on the world stage once again called for the reformation of the UN's topmost organ, the Security Council, decrying Africa's underrepresentation, calling for additional voices to dilute what he labeled traditional voices, holding the world at ransom.
Africa deserves, ladies and gentlemen, at the very least, 2 permanent seats with full rights, including the right to veto, and 2 additional non-permanent seats on the United Nations Security Council.
And heaping the praise on the United Nations and warning against pitfalls its predecessor, the League of Nations, had faced in the lead-up to the Great Depression and World War II. The president also called for the reformation of the global financial institution, which he said are unfairly working for the global south.
Institutions rarely fail because they lack vision or ideals. More often, they drift into irrelevance when they do not adapt, when they hesitate to act, and when they lose legitimacy. To remain relevant, institutions must be reimagined, must be reformed, renewed, and aligned with emerging realities.
His optimistic address on the 80th birthday of the United Nations comes against the backdrop of deadbeat members and a budget crisis that have pushed the citadel of peace and security to the brink of liquidity crisis. And though the UN has known many crises since 1945, a mix of factors, Trump's ascendancy, conflicts, climate change, and deepening multilateralism pose traumatic scenarios for this institution, which now gears up for desperate times. Ayub Abdikadir, Citizen TV, at the United Nations, New York. Well, Sam, that is the reality of the United Nations today. Antonio Guterres, who yesterday spoke before the Brazilian president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, also decried the very same challenges that the president today talked about. And this is in contrast to what Donald Trump, the American president, yesterday said when he took to the podium, calling out the United Nations, saying it no longer is fit for purpose. And that is the danger that institutions under the United Nations are at the moment facing, other than the financial crisis. Only America and China account for 40% of its budget, and payments often delay in coming to the UN accounts. And that is the challenge, the uphill task it's facing, Sam, and the uncharted waters that the Antonio Guterres-led organization formed after World War II today faces. Back to you, Sam, in studio.